Kimberly Akimbo, the 5-time Tony Award-winning Best Musical, is returning to the Twin Cities. Kimberly navigates the ups and downs of growing up and growing old, though not necessarily in that order. It's a beautiful roller coaster that's very funny and extremely moving. It's perfect for fans of musical theater like Dear Evan Hansen and Come From Away, or for fans of quirky comedies and indie films like Juno and Napoleon Dynamite. It's on stage at the Ordway February 24th through March 1st. Tickets are at ordway.org.
This is CityCast Twin Cities. I'm Sean McPherson, and here's what the cities are talking about.
Winter, what do you use Signal for before Operation Metro Surge?
You know, I actually used Signal long before Operation Metro Surge. I have a group of friends who always have used that Signal chat, mostly for rock climbing, but it's just generally the place we go to communicate with each other. And so, if you have friends who are already a little wary of the government, you might have already been on it.
Adam, you have any friends who are wary of the government? Any Signal use before Operation Metro Surge?
I guess not wary enough of the government because I haven't used it for any social communication, just like one time to get in touch with a journalist.
Oh, I only used it to buy weed and to do union organizing. And so when suddenly it's like, who's buying groceries? I was like, I thought this was just for weed and union organizing. But Signal is becoming a part of our life in the Twin Cities. Quick note for you, we have no episode on Monday due to Martin Luther King Day, but we will be back on Tuesday. On today's episode, we're going to provide an update on the shooting that happened in North Minneapolis with a federal agent on Wednesday night. We're also going to talk about the Insurrection Act, something that Trump recently threatened to invoke. And we'll also talk about some different law machinations in other parts of the country that could have an impact right here in the Twin Cities. I want to officially introduce Winter Keefer, who is a great local journalist and is a CityCast contributor. Winter, we are so glad to have you back on the show.
Great to be back, Sean.
And I also want to welcome on Adam Sage, a creative producer here for CityCast Twin Cities, and a man who at best has had 3.5 hours of sleep. Adam, was that about right for your evening? You were out at the protest in the aftermath of this shooting. How much time did you get to spend just sleeping?
I think I might have rocked a solid 5, Pretty okay.
Well, you know what? I want everybody to get their sleep, but I do appreciate that you are on hand for this. What this is the aftermath of a federal agent who shot someone in the leg. The way I was aware of this was both from social media and also watching the press conference last night with the Minneapolis mayor, Mayor Frey, and the police chief from Minneapolis, Brian O'Hara. But a lot happened before that press conference. And Winter, I'm hoping you can provide us an update.
Yeah, Sean, and with a disclaimer on the update, too, unlike with the shooting of Renee Good, we don't have video of what exactly happened. So that means we're pulling from the law enforcement account, which has not yet been verified by local media. But from what we know so far, DHS and MPD, federal officers tried to apprehend a man on I-94. The man then drove his car toward the 600 block of 24th Avenue North, and that's the Hawthorne neighborhood in North Minneapolis. He crashed the car and fled on foot and ran toward a house on that block where the officer caught up to him, and the two fell on the ground in a struggle. Again, that's according to only the reports we've received thus far. Reportedly, 1 or 2 people came out of the house. The Star Tribune reports that they might have been the man's family members, and they attacked the agents with a shovel and a broom, according to, again, the reports we have thus far. The officer then shot the man in the leg. He fled into the home and refused to come out.
Thank you, Winter. And now we're hearing that the man and the officer went to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and the other 2 people who were involved, the folks with the shovel and the broom, reportedly, are in custody. And the DHS says that this man was an undocumented Venezuelan immigrant. In fact, that statement came out before the press conference. That is not verified at this time. And I think that sort of, from the information we know, is a summary of what happened in regards to the ICE agents or the federal agents engaging with this person. But this protest is a whole nother story. And for this protest, we actually had somebody who was there. Adam Sage, our creative producer, was there. And there's a lot of videos being shared and a lot of concern about the actions, both of protesters and the actions of state troopers, Minneapolis Police Department, and federal agents at this protest. Adam, can you bring us up to speed with what you saw when you were there over in North Minneapolis?
Yeah, it was very, very intense. So I was near the intersection of North Lyndale and 25th Avenue. When I got there around 8:20 p.m., and there was a line of ICE agents on North Lyndale Avenue behind police tape and a whole crowd of protesters looking on and chanting at them. It seemed like every time the protesters kind of got organized on a single chant and got loud, chemical irritants and flashbangs were deployed by the federal agents. The flashbangs in particular were kind of the most jarring thing to me because they would throw them right at people. I had a couple land by my feet that went off and super loud and bright light. And it's just like scary. One thing I want to note is in the press conference, it was either Mayor Fry or Police Chief Brian O'Hara, or maybe both, that mentioned that the protest was unlawful and protesters were shooting fireworks off at the federal agents. There were two lines, two police lines and protest lines facing off, one on like the north side of where the incident took place, where the shooting took place. And then there's like a gap of empty road on Lyndale. And then on the south end, there's another police line. I was on the north end, and from where I was, I did not see any fireworks being shot off by protesters. The flashbangs did look like fireworks. That being said, it could have happened before I was there. It could have happened on the south end. But from what I witnessed, it was a crowd of folks chanting, throwing the occasional snowball, and in response, receiving lots of tear gas, flashbangs, and rubber bullets. I saw two people at least get injured to the point where they couldn't walk and needed to be carried away by medics. It was a tense night.
Did you see who was shooting the rubber bullets, whether it was state troopers, Minneapolis Police Department, or federal agents?
I witnessed federal agents shooting rubber bullets. I saw state troopers standing by on the scene, silently there holding batons. I didn't see them take any action against protesters. And all of the retaliation I saw come from the federal ICE agents. They had police ERO, enforcement removal officer, printed on their uniforms.
Adam, you shared a bunch of videos from CityCast's social media, and one of them involved like two canisters, I think, in someone's hand. What was that photo? Because I sort of saw it and it looked ominous, but I didn't go, oh, that's clearly a flashbang canister, or that's a tear gas canister. What was in that photo?
They were two tear gas canisters, and it was just a guy I saw bend over and pick him up, and he picked him up and laughed and said, "We're gonna dox the hell out of these companies." I don't know that the companies that are producing tear gas canisters are particularly in the good graces of anyone to begin with.
I'm taking my tear gas business somewhere else. I just
yeah, but that's what it was. It was two tear gas canisters that I thought was useful for folks to know what they look like.
In my time working with you, Adam, you are generally cool as a cucumber. So when you say it was intense, I imagine this was a rather intense experience for you. Can you talk about how safe you felt while you were at the protest and how you felt leaving and getting home after what was a pretty stressful experience?
I felt more unsafe than I did at the scene in the wake of Renee Good's killing. I think it was more tense because it seemed like the federal agents only had one way to exit, and it was through the protesters. After Renee Good's killing, when I was there, I particularly had one agent shout to me and another photojournalist, "I know you're pressed, but you need to get back." It didn't seem like there was any discernment between press, protesters, people that are just standing there, or people that are agitating. It seemed like everyone was kind of viewed as an adversary, I guess. For example, I was looking through my photos and saw one where a tear gas canister had landed right in the middle of like a TV news reporter and her cameraman and another photojournalist and me. It just was like 5 folks standing there with cameras not doing anything, that we had the canister lobbed right at our feet. So no, it felt pretty unsafe.
Adam, that's a really intense experience. In the aftermath, in the day after something like that, how are you doing, and how are you trying to take care of yourself after such an intense experience?
I'm doing okay. I don't know if it's yet to hit me, because following the chaos last week, I did have like a moment, or like a 30-minute long moment of just being very overwhelmed sitting in my chair here in my office, where it was difficult to compose myself. I don't have any injuries. I'm grateful for that, and I don't know. I find comfort in just continuing to work here.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you and everybody who was out there covering this too. It's hard and it's important so that people know what's going on in our city. So thanks for doing it.
Thanks. Yeah. And thanks to everyone else out there as well.
We'd love to hear from you. Were you out there? Have you been at some of the protests that have been happening in the past couple of days in the Twin Cities? Tell us about your experience. Send us a text or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline. That phone number is 612-217-0637. We have more news to update you on. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. Want to give you a heads up about a thrilling new adventure fantasy book that was just released called The Ascent by Christopher Walker from Vermont. It follows John Atwater, a retired Army veteran who falls through a magical door and finds himself in the mystical world of Morelia. In order to get home, he must ascend the mountainous island that stands in front of him and usurp the oppressive ruler of this strange new world. This book has all the elements of a great fantasy novel. Thrilling action sequences, magical creatures, betrayals, romance, compelling storylines, poetic justice, and even humorous exchanges by relatable characters. So go to ChristopherWalkerBooks.com and click on the Buy Now dropdown to purchase The Ascent in paperback, hardcover, or ebook formats. Recent reading scores have shown about half of Minnesotan kids are reading at grade level. As a community, we can work together to make sure all kids get the support they need to become lifelong readers. Reading Partners is a Twin Cities-based nonprofit that trains community volunteers to work one-on-one with elementary-aged children. More than simply reading with a child, our volunteers follow a proven, structured curriculum to help students learn specific skills necessary to become proficient readers. No experience is required. 1 hour a week is all it takes to make an impact. Reading Partners needs more volunteer tutors to pair with students before February. Learn more and sign up at readingpartners.org/volunteer. Winter, I have an off-the-record legal friend, and a couple of nights ago I started talking optimistically about ways that Minnesota might be able to charge Jonathan Ross, but also ways that Minnesota might be able to generally rid our state of ICE. And this off-the-record friend specializes in glibness, but he sort of said, that war was fought 250 years ago, and the feds won. there's a sense that there isn't a lot for a state to do to impact the actions of the federal government. And it seems like President Trump agrees with my friend because President Trump's recent post on social media has threatened to use the Insurrection Act, which hasn't been invoked in the past 34 years. Can you give us more information about President Trump's recent post?
Yeah, Sean, I think your friend is onto something. So from the Star Tribune's David Tainter, President Donald Trump yesterday morning threatened to use the Insurrection Act in Minnesota following the Wednesday protests. In his post on Truth Social, he said, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act. And so essentially the Insurrection Act allows for Trump to deploy the military to U.S. territory in the case of something they'd consider an insurrection. And so that would mean even more law enforcement deployed to Minnesota.
Yeah, and typically the military on U.S. soil is illegal from the Posse Comitatus Act, and the Insurrection Act provides an exception that when invoked, U.S. armed forces can be deployed against U.S. citizens.
It has been invoked a number of times, but I do want to establish that it has not been invoked in 34 years. It was in the LA riots of 1992 was the last time that it was invoked. Here's my most abysmal question for you, Winter. Would that be better? Would it be better to have soldiers who they are not necessarily trained in everything that we are talking about, but I'd take almost anything over the presence of these ICE agents with the way they are engaging with the Twin Cities right now. Is there any way that having a more professionalized force is better? Which is, I feel somewhat idiotic asking this question, but here I am. Is there any part that'd be better because they'd be more trained?
I mean, trained against who is my question back to you, I guess. I mean, it's not like they're being brought in against ICE. It's to be brought in against the people. Yeah. Where, we have reports of fireworks being thrown and then the response being flashbangs, if that's in any way comparable. And so I don't know. I think that's my main answer to you on that.
I also just got to know the ICE agents wouldn't leave. Like, it would be more.
It'd just be supporting. Yeah. Y'all have convinced me that the Insurrection Act is a bad look. So now I have perhaps a smarter take than the dumb shit take I just gave you.
Okay, don't call yourself a dumb shit, because I think it's a fair feeling at this point to think surely any change could be helpful. And it's okay that you explored that.
Right. Well, and also that, like, acknowledging that, ICE has applications out for literally anybody with major bonuses and six-figure pay. And so they're not exactly highlighting how trained they are and if they're bringing on trained people. And so there's a lack there.
Can you fog a mirror? Join ICE is kind of where it feels like at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another thing I want to explore. I want to give every opportunity for legal protest and for constitutionally protected protest against what I do agree with Attorney General Keith Ellison calling a federal invasion at this point. When there are protests that are described by the police chief of Minneapolis, Brian O'Hara, as unlawful, does this give Trump the fuel or the support to invoke or say he might invoke the Insurrection Act? And so ultimately, this is a time to avoid any protest that might inflame the federal government, including like Mike Johnson sort of doubled down on it yesterday morning, to inflame the federal government and give them any support to do something like the Insurrection Act.
I don't know that it's necessary to avoid protests, but I think it would be wise to heed the words of many elected officials as well as community organizers and leaders that continue to call on protesters to remain peaceful at these gatherings. And earlier this week, Sean, when we were at the Brass Solidarity performance at Renee Good's memorial, a man there in the brass band gave a speech about how the government is just waiting for someone to off one of the agents. Kristi Noem has been giving speeches behind words on her podium that say, "One of ours, all of yours," when no agents have even been killed. They're anticipating this. They want to take any escalation from the protesters and use that as an excuse to escalate further. So protest is necessary at this point, and peaceful protest is more necessary.
Right. It's a First Amendment right. I think that's the big piece too, to continue to highlight this is constitutionally protected. And while the protest remains constitutionally protected, it doesn't justify the use of the Insurrection Act.
Let's move on because we got that one figured out. I have seen ICE operating in parts of our world that I didn't think they would be. I envisioned for months, I've said ICE is coming here, and for months, elements of ICE have been here. But I did not envision a day where I would hear, ICE agents are at Roosevelt High School and are like sparring with students and with educators. They're at childcare centers. And now, Winter, you brought to our attention that there's reports of ICE activity inside of hospitals in Minnesota. What have you heard about that so far?
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's been something that healthcare workers this week have really drawn to attention. They're afraid of their patients' safety, for their safety, and then also just for their comfort coming in to receive medical care. And it's been rampant, ICE activity in hospitals. And so, we've seen it in the past week. The Department of Homeland Security's ICE agents have been entering Minnesota hospitals and harassing and detaining patients. There are reports of them, binding the legs of a patient, alleging that they were trying to escape. Reportedly, they handcuffed a patient to a bed. After illegally accessing the building, they should be providing a warrant, and healthcare workers have said that has not been provided to them as they enter these buildings. Fairview, Southdale Hospital, agents detained a man fighting a rare genetic disease. ICE was reported at Regents Hospital in St. Paul and detained a patient's wife who was accessing her spouse, and told her that she would face trespassing charges if she did not leave. So it's been rampant in these medical facilities that are just trying to provide basic care. And I talked about on Monday these safe zones that are no longer safe zones, which include things like schools, hospital care, and other areas that are decrying ICE presence include Metro Transit, courts. I remember writing about protests at the courts last year of ICE presence. And one thing that stuck with me is that I was told that during the Biden administration, there were 0 ICE detainments on that public building campus. And that changed last year. And from people I know who've been talking about it, it's only gotten worse with this increased deployment of ICE officers in the city. And so, these public spaces that provide public service to people are really suffering from access issues around ICE.
And Winter, a set of lawmakers stepped up and made a statement that opens with saying it's illegal for ICE to enter private buildings and residencies without a judicial warrant, and it is absolutely unconscionable to deliberately put patients' health at risk. This lawlessness and vigilantism must end now. It goes on from there, and I'm glad that there is a statement being made by lawmakers. And I also was noting that a lot of the lawmakers making the statement are themselves medical professionals, paramedics, registered nurses. I also want to note, this looks partisan at the moment. I see only DFL folks. Does that mean that you go past a Republican's desk and you go, hey, I just think we should probably like not shackle people to hospital beds and like not let ICE go through. And they're like, I'm sorry, I just got pot bellies. I'm going to finish this up and decide if I want to sign it afterwards. Like at this point, these statements that I just think should be fundamentally humane statements that should be widely agreed upon should represent, there should be some Republicans. Does this shock you that there's not a Republican?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what shocked me is I know I talked about the First Amendment, but it's also an amendment right for search and seizure for, your own safety and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think these legislators emphasizing that it's illegal for ICE to enter private buildings is major. And, it's tough when you're picking and choosing when you want to follow the law or not. And I think that generally should be less of a partisan issue, especially from folks who choose to highlight it when it makes it convenient for them.
Hey, Carl, we want people to follow the law. What do you think about that? Again, I'm a little busy at the
Right. Like when do we follow the law? I think that like it's kind of the crux of the whole situation we have on hand is that like we keep seeing these situations of the laws being broken by officers of the country. And so, it's like who watches the Watchmen, right? Like it's like goes back to the basic fundamentals of how do you even respond to public officers breaking the law?
We want to hear from you. What ripple impacts are you experiencing? Let us know by texting us or leaving us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline, 612-217-0637. We'd love to share those thoughts in an upcoming mailbag segment. We got some wins to celebrate, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. I have been parched for wins because mainly when I look at my phone or out my front door, I'm hearing about folks who are like, yeah, they got some tear gas on my clothes, so I got to keep that away from the dog. And folks going like, yeah, I just picked up another set of whistles. And there is a lot to be very stressed about and very worried about. But in times of crisis, there is always things to celebrate as well. And we're going to celebrate a couple wins for the Twin Cities. And we had a really beautiful time being at a Brass Solidarity concert at 34th in Portland.
Ain't gonna let no scared ICE agent turn me round. Turn me round. Turn me round. Ain't gonna let no fraidy cat ICE agent turn me round. I'm gonna keep on. I'm gonna keep on.
I was able to be there with our producer, who's also on this episode, Adam Sage. And Adam, like, that is the best my body and spirit has felt in many, many weeks. And it was truly uplifting to see that. And you made a social media post that actually gathered a lot of traction and a lot of people have loved it. And I'm not trying to pat us on the back because, like, people just need joy. We were able to put a camera in front of joy and share that. And joy did what it always does, which is just rise and raise in volume. Here's the great part. Brass Solidarity is like straight up recruiting off of the Instagram thing. And they're like, oh, you play a trombone? Like, we got an extra one. Like, we can help you out. Like, oh, you're like, oh, tuba? Yeah, bring it down. Let's figure it out. And the idea that this organization, Brass Solidarity, was formed in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. And to see that at this point, they are still going strong. They are getting stronger and they're getting some new tuba players. I'm going to count that as a Twin Cities win. So that is a really good thing to put a smile on my face on this Friday. Adam, I know you're looking forward to an event that's coming up tomorrow. Let me know about the Art Sled Rally.
Yeah, I think it's a dub for the Twin Cities that the Powderhorn Art Sled Rally is going on tomorrow. According to Axios Twin Cities, it will not be canceled under any circumstance. If you're unfamiliar with this event, people in South Minneapolis build massive, ornate sleds. Sometimes they're very funny. Sometimes they're very serious. I attended last year. One of my favorite sleds that was built was a giant butt that had a person inside of it dropping turds out of it as it went down the hill. There was also, if you remember last year, the news stories around orcas taking down yachts. So there was a sled that A yacht sled went down first and waited at the bottom, and then an orca sled went down after that and crashed into the yacht. If you know Powderhorn, you know it's a civically engaged, very artful area, and I am anticipating some very ornate, artful, socially conscious sleds going down the hill tomorrow.
And the organizers are saying that nothing is going to have them cancel this event.
They're saying nothing's going to stop them. Don't even try. Go out and put a smile on your face.
Speaking of something that nothing can stop, Angela Davis is a force of nature here in media in the Twin Cities, but she's been off the microphone for a long time. She is a host on NPR News, and she does incredible work on the microphone. I was lucky enough to call her a colleague for a number of years, and she's somebody who always brought that collaborative spirit. I was like musing about my love of like subgenre of 70s funk, and she was like, I will clear my Saturday night and come play some of this music for you on your request show. And that is not in the top 150 most awesome things that this woman has done in her career. She is just a beacon of positivity and of information. And we're so lucky that Angela Davis is back on the microphone for Minnesota Public Radio. So welcome back. That's after beating cancer. Congratulations to Angela Davis. And Winter, you kind of got a coverall for this. You were just feeling some positivity about the community. What is your win for this Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just find it to be a win to be here despite the chaos, because the community is so robust and so diverse and cares about each other so much. I see you wrote down another win is new bangs. I got new bangs, but I was talking to my hairdresser yesterday, and she was talking about raising her son and how she's doing that with her family and incorporating community care into that, and just working really hard to raise a good man. And I thought that was really inspirational. So I think my overall, it's a broad win, but I do find it, despite challenging times, a win to be here. And I just want to highlight that.
While we're celebrating community, let's celebrate a really sound operation from a security guard at a McDonald's on the north side of Minneapolis. Adam, you got this one?
Yeah, one more win for today. Red Wooten, a security guard at a North Minneapolis McDonald's, did his job well when two masked ICE agents tried to come in to the restaurant, and they were not allowed in there. They kept asking to talk to the manager, and Red repeatedly said, no, you're talking to me. I'm security. I'm in charge. And he didn't let them back into the kitchen, and they ended up leaving the restaurant without any folks in their hands. He said he stood his ground 10 toes down, and has a phrase that I think is really sweet, where he says, I'm just glad God put me on the wake-up list this morning.
That was a spectacular story, and we should give a shout out to North News, who do an incredible job of covering what is happening on the north side of Minneapolis, and certainly appreciate their coverage of that. That's all for today here on CityCast Twin Cities. I'm your host, Sean McPherson. Winter Keefer, Adam Sage, thanks for being here today. Our executive producer is Anna Wagle. Our creative producers are Adam Sage and Tiffany Bowie. Our audience engagement manager is James Napoli. Our senior account executive is Heather Hull. Post-production this week was done by PJ Shahama and Anthony Luciano. Our host is me, Sean McPherson. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Our mailbag music is by our own Adam Sage. Our ad music is by Joseph Rusnock, Sven Lindvall, and Sarah, the instrumentalist from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast Twin Cities newsletter. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with Winter Keefer's Bangs?
That got me.
We have no episode on Monday due to Martin Luther King Day, so we'll see you back here on Tuesday for more news from around the city.